everybody, welcome to a new week. I'm sure this looks very dramatic. You're wondering, Lorna, are we really talking about corsets today? Yes, we are. I know it's dramatic, but you actually do need these as part of your tools for making corsets. Maybe not all the time, but you do definitely need them, especially when you're dealing with steel bones. So today I'm just going to cover a few tools that I use when I'm making corsets, and I'm not going to get into every single sewing thing you need. I'm just going to get into corset specific things that I use to make corsets. So I don't want this video to be long, so let's get to it and let's begin. There are different types of bones for corsets. Some are good, some are not so good. So let's start with the wriggling bone, which is a plastic flexible bone that you could actually sew on. It's used a lot in sewing various clothes, not just corsets, and it's very, very popular, and it is also the cheapest amongst the bones that I am going to talk about today. You generally would buy it in meters. They don't sell them in pieces, so you buy the amount of meters you need and then you stitch. It comes in different widths. It's not just one width, so there are narrower ones and wider ones, and usually you have to secure the edge to just make sure it doesn't pierce through your fabric, so you always have to neaten that. So that's a wriggling bone. The next type of bones are plastic bones. There are usually different types of plastic bones with different strengths. The one I'm showing you are the types that I have in store. There's one that has some lines in it, and there are others that do not. They come in different widths as well, and you cannot sew through them. You have to put them in a boning channel or boning casing and sew them onto the corset, so you cannot sew through them. And you also notice if you wear bras that on the side of a bra there's usually the small plastic bone that usually holds it upright. So this is better than the wriggling bone for sure. This is steel boning. To ensure that it is steel, you have to use a magnet, and if it's magnetic then it's steel. So sometimes you never know if you're really getting the real deal, so that's a good way to check. And it comes in various widths, lengths as well. You can get them pre-cut like this one, or you can get them in a roll like those ones, and you can see even the widths are different. So it's important when you're buying to communicate with the person you're buying from the width you want. Point of note, these are steel caps for putting at the edge of boning, the steel boning, whether flat or spiral. You can see this one has, so it actually has to be according to the width of the boning you bought. You just can't put any end on anything. Yeah. So lastly, there is the boning casing, which I also showed you when I was showing you the plastic bones. Use them in steel bone as well as plastic bones. And you don't have to use it when you're making it. You could always insert your bones in the boning channel between two of the layers of your corset, but this makes it way much easier to sew your bones onto the corset, and also makes it easier to be transferable. Basques and zips are the most popular form of closures used in corsets. You could also do front lacing in your corset. You could also use the basque, which comprises of loops and posts. And then you could use a very rare swing arm clasps. Those are very difficult to come by, that are both decorative and functional. And then you could use the zip, preferably open-ended zip. So a basque mimics a hook and eye, so it's made on one side with loops and the other side with posts. Traditionally they were made from wood, and now they're made from steel, and they have different shapes, different sizes, different lengths, and they are very, very versatile and very, very popular. And because they are sturdy and they're made of metal, sometimes people don't feel they need to reinforce the front with bones because the basque is already sturdy. and they are a bit flexible so that you can mold them to someone's body as well. Zips are also very popular because they come in all sorts of lengths and also colors, so that means it can also easily be matched to the different corsets that you are making. Open-ended zips are the best to use, preferably YKK brand, because they are very sturdy and their quality is well known. Alternatively, you could also not put any fastener in front of your corset. You could just make the laces at the back longer so someone can be able to wear it. That's also another very popular method if you don't want to buy basques or zips. There are different ways of creating eyelets, and one of them is with a hole puncher, where you actually need a mallet to help hit the rod to create the hole and insert the eyelet. The second one is with a handheld grommet maker, and lastly the hand press grommet machine. The hand press grommet machine is the most expensive of the three. Eyelets also come in different sizes, so that means you would have to buy a different dial for every size eyelet you want. The dial can also be changed to make press buttons, so that means you have to buy a dial that does press buttons. Hand press machines are also different designs, so make sure you buy the right hand press machine for the function you want to use it for. There are different types of owls, some found in woodwork shops and leather shops, but the small one is used for corset making, and you could see it's used to transfer holes, grommet holes from one side to the other. You could also use it to expand the hole that you're going to put the eyelets so that it doesn't tear. You could use it to sharpen corners as well as help you sew and move the fabric as you sew on the machine. The bias tape maker can give you an easier time making bias tape to put on your corset or stays or any other garment to just neaten the edges, as you're seeing on this diagram. The manual ones come in different sizes. The one I have actually has 4 different sizes, so you can make various sizes of bias tape with it, and it's usually a standard size. You basically put a strip of fabric, preferably cut diagonally, through it as demonstrated in this video, and then you iron it on this other side and then you use it. The demonstration one I use is a bit too big, but it has to be at least the width, a bit bigger than the width of the back of the gadget. Usually you do it on a flat surface because you need to iron as you pull. Then there is another type that you attach on your machine. The one I have seen mostly you attach on an industrial machine. I haven't seen one that you don't touch on a machine, and then you just put your tape through and it stitches your bias onto your garment. Fabric clips are colorful little clips that you use to hold fabric. It could be layers of fabric or very delicate fabric that you don't want holes to go through. They come in packs of 50 to I think 25. I bought mine on Jumia a long time ago, and I don't think they are still available in Kenya at this time. They are a great substitute for pins because you can't always pin everything you are trying to sew. And if you can't find these, you could use the paper clips. There's some specific paper clips you could use that could probably do the same job, but these are fantastic because the flat surface allows you to be able to still hold your fabric as you sew through the machine. So I love to use these clips on delicate fabrics or bulky fabrics, especially if you don't want piercings through the fabric. Like for this corset, the fabric is very delicate and I didn't want to damage it further by pinning through it, so the clips really helped. And it's also pretty bulky because corsets have multiple layers, so these clips have come in very handy. So I'm going to stitch down this binding, so I'll use the clips to hold it down, and it really helps. And personally I find them easier to use than pins, so I think I'll be using these more and more. Loop pressing bars are very versatile flat plastic rods that come in various sizes in terms of thickness. I specifically use them to create boning channels because they tend to be just slightly wider than the bones I use, and I know that I'm going to get an accurate size of a boning channel on my corset, especially because bones come in different widths and so do the bars. In this part of the video, you could see that I was using it to create the boning channels. I was drawing with a chalk pencil to create the channels and to make sure that the channels are uniform in size and that the bones will actually fit the channels. As you can see now in the next clip, that's how the channels look. Check online for what else you could use these loop pressing bars for. It's very, very versatile. The other thing are definitely gloves. I'm wearing gloves. I tried to look for fabric gloves that are completely fabric. It was very, very difficult, and I also had a limited budget, and I wanted gloves that I could use for other things. So I found these in the supermarket Carrefour, where there is rubber on one side and fabric on the other side, so it can fit a diverse range of arms. They were not very expensive. I think they were less than 500 shillings. So as you can see, it has some gold tips. That's because I also used them when I was doing some spray paint, so that means they're very versatile. Because of the rubber on this side, I could use them for other projects outside of corset. The reason I need gloves is because, again, the steel bones are very, very hard to cut, and I injured my hand, and it even made me take very, very long when I was cutting it. I was using wire snips to cut, and at first it's fine, but as you continue it gets very, very painful, so it's wise to have gloves. So I will show you what the wire snips look like. So these are wire cutters. As you can see how they look. I had to go to a hardware store to buy these. I also do use pliers, and there are some pliers that have a wire cutting edge on one side, but every time I went to a shop to ask for a tool to cut wires, I was being given pliers, and I know there are people who really wing it with pliers. Pliers are not wire cutters, and when I kept insisting on wire cutters, they didn't understand why I was being very specific. Wire cutters have a very sharp blade. As you can see, one side is inside, it's dented inside, the other side. There are different types of wire cutters. I just bought this because they're actually specific cutters for cutting steel bone that are not sold here, because half the time when I'm buying certain things, the funny thing is when you're buying wire cutters, people ask you, what do you want to cut? And I tell them it is for making clothes, and they look at you like you're a crazy person because they don't understand. And then when you show them the corset, they still don't understand because they're like, how are you using that to cut that? They don't get it. So wire cutters are the thing. Just ask for wire cutters and ask for specific, the one with specific blade for cutting wires. It is very sharp. Pliers with a blunt blade will not really help you much. You'll just struggle for no reason. You might as well screw in one of your scissors and cut your bones. Yes, you can use scissors, but you spoil your scissors. So wire cutters. So these are goggles. They are plastic goggles. They were not very expensive. They are usually used as safety equipment in various industries, and I just needed something that will allow me to still see what I'm doing, as well as be able to cut steel bone without hurting my eyes. I tried working without goggles, and the pieces can fly. I almost injured my eye many times. So I figured I'd rather be safe than sorry. It took me a while to realize that I actually needed to buy something. I know maybe it's obvious for some people, but I didn't think that the steel bones would, fly off into pieces. So as I watched other corset makers making their corsets, some definitely advise that you protect your eyes. So these are goggles, plastic. They are just plastic goggles. They are completely covered on each side, and they still have some holes, I guess, for ventilation. I think your eyes still need ventilation. Another thing is you also need them when you're spraying stuff. If you ever like spraying things with spray paint, these will be very, very helpful. And of course, a safety mask if you need to use a safety mask. I'm assuming that if you're adding extra decoration on something, even if it's a corset or something else, these are definitely handy. They will not only be used when you're doing your corsets. So I'm going to repeat some footage I had on corset making process. If you've been checking out the playlist of my corset series, you probably have seen some of this footage, but I just thought to insert it here because there's a process when you're making corsets that is very, very important, and I know I haven't covered that this year, and I'm just going to put a small bit of it. It's just going to be the exact footage I used. I think it will just be helpful so that when you're working on your corsets you understand. So it's also a teaser for you to watch the rest of the corset series. If you're really, really interested in corset making, I think it will be very, very helpful. So here are the clips. Whether you choose to buy your patterns or make patterns yourself, you must test them because there's a lot of things to consider with how a corset is supposed to fit you. Whether you're making it as a support garment or you want reduction, you have to test the pattern. Testing the pattern actually means making a sample as well, because you cannot just test it on paper. You actually have to sew it so that you can see how it fits, then you can know how to adjust your pattern. And this is a process that you'll probably have to do for every single corset you make, and also for the clients you decide to make for. Unless you're just repeating a corset pattern you've made before, then you can just use the same pattern. But if you are making a new design and all that, you always have to test it with a sample. It's very hard to visualize design concepts in a corset. So during your sampling process, that is the time you can test the embellishments or whatever decoration you want to put on your corsets, and then make it. If you have to make your sample in a smaller size than you, maybe it's easier. Like for me, you can see in these images I used a mannequin. It's just easier for me to visualize it when I am seeing it more than if I'm wearing it myself. So it's a very tedious process. As you can see, I went through very many different concepts and did it again and did it again. This process took a lot of days. But in the end, at least by the time you can see I have done the final concepts, I was already settled, because even these embellishments have to be done before you put the whole corset together. You cannot put the corset together and then do the embellishments. They have to be done before. It is better for you to take longer in the design phase of this process because of how long it takes to make a corset. There's a tendency to change your mind a lot as well. So it's better to just take your time before really making it in the final garment. Also, just think through your design. As you can see, some of the footage I have here, I had to redo the lacing of a corset because I thought I've come up with a new concept of a design. Unfortunately, I did it at the very end of my corset making process, and I had to undo the corset and then put the eyelets because the way I thought it was going to lace did not work. So it's very important that you take your time in this process. It's a good thing I didn't have to redo the whole thing because the only part that was affected is the grommet part. But definitely take your time. So this is it for corset making series. If I ever do other content on corsets, it's going to be probably short form videos. I think this playlist has I think I've covered basically everything about corsets, maybe except how to make corset patterns or something like that. But I hope that this playlist will be helpful to you. Definitely check out all the other videos. Some information, of course, you'll see is repeated in this year's videos, but I hope you will still find it helpful because I was trying to segment it in a very specific way. So I guess I will see you soon when I do more. I think I'm going to cover some things you need if you want to really start sewing, whether you want to start as a hobby or you want to expand some of the things you're buying for the sewing project. I definitely covered it during Vlogmas 2021, but it was individual videos, and I know not everybody likes to watch the videos individually, even though they're in a playlist. I might repeat the information, I'll think about it, but I'm going to definitely do some content in November, so watch out for that. Meanwhile, enjoy the videos that I've already done, and thank you so much for watching this till the end, and I guess I'll see you soon. Bye.